I am joined with kickboxing legend, 11th-time world champion, and also, guys, we've seen this face down the video store aisles of the martial arts section. Don the Dragon Wilson was all over the place in that martial arts section at the video store, and I cannot wait to talk to you about those great movies and your kickboxing career. How are you today, Don?
I'm doing very good, very good. I've just luckily I've gotten on time. I'm very happy for that, and great to see you, John. I appreciate you let me come on your podcast.
I really appreciate you coming on. Huge fan. My history is that I studied Taekwondo, and my instructor, Mr. Vincent Marmundi, told me all about your films. He recommended all these great movies to me, the Blood Fist films, you know, the stuff that you were involved in, Steven Seagal movies, fun, you know, action movies, Best of the Best, of course, with Philip and Simon Reed. Oh, some of the best of the best. And I just fell in love with your movies, and every single time I brought one back to the video store, there'd be another one, like Ring of Fire would come.
Oh, I used to do 5 in 1 year.
Exactly. Yeah. I think we got 8 Blood Fists now, right?
Yes, there were 8 with me, but you know, Roger Corman sent me a script for the 9th Blood Fist, and I had a problem with the script. Really, I did not. It was too similar to the original Blood Fist. It was like the same story, and Roger took the same story and he put it in the year 2050. So it was called Blood Fist 2050. I believe that was the title of it. But anyway, a different actor ended up doing the movie, and I've never seen it, but I'm sure it's fine. But you know, that was the problem. I did 8 Blood Fists. There was a 9th one, but it was not with me. So you know,
I loved 1. I loved them all, actually. The ones, of course, you were in. 3, Forced to Fight, the prison one.
Yeah, the prison, Dragon in Prison.
Amazing. And then the 4th one took it to the next level. Like, you know, that was a great one.
In the opening, I fight Gene LaBelle.
Yes.
The opening guy was Gene LaBelle.
The fight choreography that you did in those movies, was that done by you, or were there other people that participated?
No, and I've used many different, well, not too many, but I've used other just choreographers in my films. And, you know, I did that on purpose. I did not want the same choreographer for every film, because then all the fight action would look similar. But you can't help it. I mean, if the same guy is choreographing it, will you get different people? And hopefully I picked different people for the right movies, because, you know, there were science fiction movies, there were horror movies I did, there were many different genre of movies mixed with martial arts. And I had different looks to the films. They didn't look all exactly the same. You know,
yeah.
I would do adjustments though. You know, if I wasn't comfortable with a move, it was a block or a punch or something, and you know, I didn't have input, because you know, when your name goes above the title, you get to have just about anything you want on a movie set. So I had a lot of input in the editing rooms and things like that. But generally, I like the idea of using different people. Art Camacho probably was my most used choreographer. And as a matter of fact, he's done 3 films with me as a director. So Art Camacho is the main guy I worked with, though, in my producing the films.
Yeah, man. You know, the reason why I bring that up is because you guys sell moves so well. You know, there's sometimes we could watch, even to this day, we see martial arts films or action films, and you just don't buy it. Like before I mentioned, like Simon Ree, who does a lot of fight choreography for films. What an amazing job that guy always does. I always want to see you, and because I know you guys are all good buddies, you know, maybe
Simon and I have worked together. Simon has done, he's a stuntman in Hollywood as well. I mean, A-list stuntman. And he's done stunts on my film, Simon. And him and his brother did a movie. It's a family film. Gosh, what was the name of it? But anyway, they asked me to do a scene playing myself in their movie, and I did. It was a family movie they produced just a few years ago, as a matter of fact.
That's great. We need a Best of the Best Part 5, and we need to have you in, Eric Roberts, Philip Reese, Simon.
Well, you know, I know Eric. We've been together. We've gone to Moscow together, spent weeks together, going to film festivals and things. And he's a great guy, and you know, that it wouldn't be beyond the realm of possibility. The thing is, Roger has sold the Blood Fist series to a Chinese producer. And that Chinese producer hired me to do the Blood Fist TV series. So we
Wow.
were supposed to be shooting that this year in Beijing. And then I had another TV series offer in Kazakhstan. That was also supposed to be this year. And this pandemic has put a stop to both of them. So, yeah.
Exactly, man. You know, and Eric's a great guy. I've actually had him on my show recently, him and his wife, 2 times over the pandemic. The one great thing about the pandemic is that we could find ways to connect with people that, you know, in a faster process than it usually would have been, like you and I right now. You know,
I
it's like
never did these before the pandemic.
exactly my
And I've
point.
been doing 1 to 2 of these a week since.
And it's great. It's great for, you know, myself. It's great for you. We get to
That's great for
talk
me.
and we
Fantastic.
reflect and get creative on things. So speaking about reflections, okay, you started off in high school with a lot of different sports outside of martial arts, which we will cover
Oh, yeah.
martial arts in a little bit. But in high school, football, basketball, wrestling, like, you know, you
Yeah.
pretty
Well,
much kicked
actually, I
ass.
wrestled in college, but I also played football in college. I played for the Coast Guard Academy um, my first year of college. And then I transferred after 2 years, or after 1 year of the Coast Guard, I went to a 2-year degree program in Florida, junior college. And I had no money to go to school. So I said, what sports do you have? And they said, well, the basketball team's picked. We don't have a football team, but we have a wrestling team. What's your wrestling background? And I said, none. I've never wrestled. I said, but I want to try out. And the uh, athletic director said, well, son, nobody starts a sport at the collegiate level. The first day of a sport is not in college. Like if you've never dribbled a basketball, you can't go to some college and try out for the team. And he said, but if you want to audition, or not audition, it was tryout. He gave me the date. I went, I tried out. I got on the team. I took 4th in the state my second year. So I started wrestling. My first day was in college, and learned the rules. I didn't even know the rules. But you know, the coach could see early on when I was working with the wrestlers that I was an athlete, because I like, as I said, I had played football and basketball, and I was in great shape. And you know, I got to admit though, my motivation in the tryouts was my college education. So I had more motivation than the other guys wrestling against me. And wrestling is one of the sports, though, like boxing, like kickboxing, that desire can trump skill, experience, technique. If when you're physically going against somebody, yeah, desire. They say Rocky Marciano had desire to win his fights, but not necessarily the greatest skill. Didn't have the best jab. He wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the biggest, the strongest. But he just beat the living daylights out of guys because he had the heart. They call it heart. And I think because of the pressure of I was either going to get a college degree or not, during the times I was trying out, it gave me a lot of incentive.
Yeah, you spoke about college years too. I mean, you got an associate's degree, I believe, in
Yes.
electrical engineering. Congratulations on that. Again, a man of many hats, and then you left college to pursue fighting. You know,
Yes, well, my father was an engineer. My father at the time, that's why I was following my father's footsteps, which many children do. And my father was an engineer at the Kennedy Space Center. Now, in those days, we didn't have a arms race. We had a space race going on in my days. You know, I moved to Florida in the 50s. So in the 60s, when I was growing up, it was all about NASA. I was living right there in Cocoa Beach. I mean, my dad was working with the astronauts, the 7 original ones. So anyway, it was a natural progression. I was following in his footsteps. But when I transferred to Florida Institute of Technology, which is in Melbourne, Florida, and it's where all the Space Center guys come from. We called it at the time the MIT of the South, FIT. So I was going to school there, and my brother saw the first fights, kickboxing fights in the United States, which was in 1974, and he asked me if I would fight in the first fights in Florida because he wanted to promote them. And I said, yeah, I'll try it. So I did it, and I fell in love with it. And I believe it was probably, you know, I should try to get this date, but I think it was like 76 when I decided, or 70, to get out of the things that I had to do was drop out of college. And then I quit my job. I was working at weekends on nightclubs and things as a bouncer. And eventually I became a manager of a nightclub, but I had to quit that and just dedicate myself to kickboxing. And I won my first world title in 1980. So that was the genesis. That was how I went from college students to world champion kickboxer.
Yeah, 11-time world champion. I'm sure that there's more, to that. Obviously, one of the greatest kickboxers, if not the greatest of all time, Don. I mean, the record speaks for itself. I mean, I have it down at 72-5 with 48 KOs.
Yeah.
Woo, man.
And I've had 2 draws. So it's 73-5-2. Or no, 72-5-2. That's my record. 72-5-2.
A tremendous amount of experience. Obviously, very decorated. What was your inspiration really to get into martial arts and study? Because you became pretty much Don the Dragon. It was your brother?
Yeah. Well, here's what it was. I was in the Coast Guard Academy at the time, and I was home on a vacation. And my brother was already a black belt in Pailam Kung Fu and Yoshikai Karate, Japanese karate. So he had 2 black belts, and I had never had 1 lesson. So we put on a pair of boxing gloves. He wants to spar with me. He said, I'm going to kick and punch you. You're just going to punch. And I said, oh, okay. I'm ready. I thought I could do a little boxing. Now, at the time, I'm pretty sure my weight was around 205. That was around my weight as a middle linebacker. And by the way, I ended up wrestling down at 167. So I dropped all that weight.
Wow. And you're 6 foot tall, I believe, right?
You're 205. Yes. I'm half Irish. I'm Irish Japanese. Mm-hmm. So I have the height from my Irish side and then the face from my Japanese side. But so anyway, I sparred my brother. And anybody who knows martial arts knows that if you're a white belt and like a beginner and you spar a black belt, you're going to get your rear end handed to you. There's absolutely no doubt. And my brother basically kicked me all over the front yard. And I learned that in one session that the martial arts was real. And that if you study martial arts, you can improve by light years your ability to defend yourself. So to me, there was no sport at the time. It was not a sport, but it was something practical that you could use, that martial arts actually does work. So when I went back to the Coast Guard Academy, I enrolled. They had a karate school at the academy. That was the Goju, Japanese karate. And I enrolled. My first instructor was a guy named Chuck Merriman, very high-ranking Goju instructor. And when I left the Coast Guard, I came to Florida. I studied Pailam Kung Fu because that's my brother's. He had that school. So people ask me, oh, you mean you knew that Kung Fu was better than karate? And I said, no. If I wanted to take karate, I'd have to pay for it. If I take Kung Fu, it's free because it's my brother's. So I became a Kung Fu black belt. And then, like I said, I fought the first fight in the state of Florida, 74. I fought the first fight on ESPN, and that was in 1979. Wow. I have a lot of firsts because I started when the sport started in America.
I was going to bring that up because
I'm like the granddad of kickboxing.
I was going to say, brother, I mean, you look at the UFC, like even the movies you guys were doing at that time, with the Blood Fist and the Future Kick and Ring of Fire, like everything was ahead of its time. The moves you saw in those movies were different. I mean, of course, there's the Bruce Lee films, which were great. And then you went on to have a commentating career in the UFC. And I think it's great how mixed martial arts evolved. And I think it's by way of guys like yourself.
Yeah, well, there's a kind of a history of martial arts. People hear things on the front side. For example, you see a movie, but the behind the scenes sometimes is more interesting than just watching the movie. Or if you know what happened to make it, and you know what happened. Like when the UFC first started, they wanted me to be one of the original announcers. And I asked them what the rules were, because it was not going to be a sport. It was what you call like a spectacle. If you get 8 guys from all different styles, you throw them in there bare hands, almost no rules except they said no biting, no eye gouging. Everything else, pretty much, they said go. I said, no weight division? I said, no weight division. I said, you know what? That sounds too dangerous to me. I don't want to be the announcer. So the first UFC I did not announce. Second UFC, they called me up, and I said, no. I said, I never watched it. I didn't watch the first one, second one. I said, no, it's just too dangerous. I'm sorry. I'm glad nobody got hurt seriously in the first one. Yeah. But when you don't have weight divisions, you got an 80-pound guy fight 220. I said, no. So then the third UFC, they were very adamant that they wanted me to be an announcer. On the third UFC, I said, they asked me, would you come and watch it live? And I didn't see the pay-per-view ones. So I said, okay, you guys will want to fly me there and whatever. So I go there, and what ended up happening is that's the one where Hoist Gracie lost.
Yeah.
If you remember, he basically got tired. He fought chemo, got tired, and then he just left. He didn't wrestle. There's a guy from Canadian, jumping up and down, ready to fight, and Hoist gets up to the ring, and I'm sitting ringside, and he has an argument with his brothers, and he just shakes his head no, like he must have been saying, listen, I'm just too tired. If I go in there, he's gonna knock me out. So they left. And I thought to myself, I said, you know what? I should just fight Hoist Gracie. He's my size. He was winning the shows, so he was a winner. And I said, so I went to the UFC and I said, you know what? I want to fight in your event, but I don't want to enter an 8-man tournament. I said, I will fight one guy, then I'll fight that guy that's won twice, Hoist Gracie. And they said, okay, we'll set it up. And they said, how much money do you want? I said, 20% of the gross. Now, at that time, if the gross is $4 million, which it was then, that means $800 and $800,000 for the Dragon. And that's to fight Hoist Gracie. Now, I fought 28 years as a kickboxer. The tragedy of being a fighter is brain damage. You cannot get out of the sport if you're going to get hit. But when you fight Hoist Gracie, how many left hook knockouts have you seen him? How many times have you seen him kick a guy? No. It's going to be this. It's going to be.
It's all tapping. It's all tapping.
So there was no downside. I said, listen, I'll chunk a bunch of bombs and I'll do my best on the ground, try to stay off the ground, try to escape. But in the worst case scenario, I'm still going to get at least. Because I believe that, the numbers they were getting would have been jacked way up if I had fought Hoist.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
One of the best strikers against the best grappler and put them together, that would have been a hype thing. Even back then, I think they would have got much better numbers. But it never happened, though, because what they did was they said, well, come on as an announcer, and we'll pump the fight up, and then we'll let you fight Hoist. So I announced maybe 4 of the events. And I went to them and I said, when are we going to set the fight up? And Bob Meyerowitz was the main guy at the time. He basically owned the UFC, SEC Productions, Sports Entertainment, something. And he ended up saying, Don, we just don't want to start a precedent of giving percentages to any of these fighters. Because if you remember, here's what they had. They had 8 guys fighting for 50 grand.
Yes, I remember.
They would give small appearance fees of a couple of grand to enter, and they'd have 8 guys at the end of the night, no matter who won, he got a $50,000 check. And I was looking to get minimum 800 grand.
Right.
Back in the 90s.
Because you had the name, Don the Dragon.
Yes, but look, Hoist had the name for the grapplers, though.
Of course he did.
It would have been, I think it would have been a very exciting and he would have been, I know this because I've done grappling now. I've worked with jiu-jitsu guys. There's not a single one who ever locks up with me that isn't surprised. No matter what some people tell it, because they immediately thought I'm a stand-up guy, stand-up. And even though the first times I started training with them, because I was training with grapplers with like Gene LaBelle back when Hoist was fighting. Think about that. Mm-hmm. So yes, I was a wrestler for 2 years, and I picked it up like that. My natural sports, the best sport I ever picked up on was wrestling. So when I learned the jiu-jitsu, what not to do, how to defend myself against jiu-jitsu, not get choked around the neck, don't give it down to your back. Certain things I learned not to do, make mistakes. I would not let them get the arm. I learned them pretty fast, and I could survive on the ground. I'm not saying I would have. You don't choke out a Gracie.
No, man.
You knock them out, though. Like Matt Hughes, when Matt Hughes fought him, he just swamped over him. And look, Matt Hughes was a wrestler, a high school wrestler. I watched his grappling, and I said, I think I can beat him on the ground. Because, that was a fight that Dana White offered me, to fight Matt Hughes. He approached me in Vegas once.
Wow.
We shook on it. Dana White's matchmaker and I shook on the amount. Then when the contracts came to my agent, it was a little more than half what Dana verbally promised.
Oh, man.
That's why the fight didn't happen with me and Matt Hughes. Right after Matt Hughes fought Hoist, I was going to fight him. I had agreed to fight him in Vegas. And that's why guys like Randy Couture, they're all friends of mine now, these UFC guys. They don't like Dana White because Dana White is a disrespectful, lying businessman. Now, I don't know him in his personal life, but as a businessman, see, in his mind, I had never had one MMA fight. He didn't respect the fact that I'd been a kickboxer for 20-something years, and I had won 11 world titles.
You started this game. You started this. Like, you're one of the pioneers of
I was one of the guys, John, I'm not the only one, but I was one of the guys who built up the original martial arts fighters into pay-per-view and network TV, ESPN, to make it a money-making thing. There was no, before 1974, there was no professional martial arts competition. Now, what they did was they took kickboxing and added submission, and that's how they got MMA. It's the mixing is the grappling arts with the striking arts. But you notice there have been, well, quite a few kickboxers become UFC champions. Mm-hmm. Like Maurice Smith was one of them, first ones. Then there was one of the, what's his name? Chuck Liddell was a kickboxer. Man, kickboxing, they learned their strikes, and then they went to the UFC, they learned the submission, and they became successful. But it's rare, though. It's rare when you have somebody whose main art is the submission, that he would enter a boxing match or kickboxing and win. Now, Conor McGregor started his career as a boxer.
Yes.
His martial arts, he started as an amateur boxer in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
He was never a good boxer. And but he was good enough to throw straight left and knock out a bunch of grapplers. But he's not. Well, I didn't know a lot about his career, but I watched him briefly, and then I watched Khabib, and I said, if Khabib takes him to the ground, eventually he'll choke him out, which is what happened.
Khabib is an animal.
But on their feet, Conor had the striker's chance of catching him. And but it didn't happen. Khabib just took him to the ground and eventually chokes him out. He did the thing. Gene LaBelle told me. He said, "Your strategy can be very simple on the ground, no matter what tech." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, you got to be like a boa constrictor. Every time your guy tries to get away from you, he makes a little space. When he makes that space, you close it, and you just get closer and closer and closer." He said, no matter how, when they pull away, you tighten up that 1/4 inch of breathing area. You close that off. He said, and I watched Khabib, and I believe that was his strategy against Conor. As much as Conor was struggling, he would make a little gap, and Khabib would just close it off. Mm-hmm. And but anyway, Conor McGregor ended up boxing Mayweather. Now, I was with Mayweather last year in Chechnya. Me, Mayweather, and Mark Dacascos were the guests of the president of Chechnya for his birthday party. So I asked him about it. I said, "Hey, you Mayweather?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I made $200 million my last fight." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, you deserve your name then." And I said, "I watched that fight. You weren't doing much punching in the first 5 rounds." He goes, "John, I was the promoter of the fight." He promoted it. He had to make a show, and I'm sure he told Conor, "Look, if you're respectful, I won't take you out early. But you do anything that I don't like, because if you study that fight, you'll see Conor doing what I call wrist punching. He has Mayweather's head, and he's doing this. Now, you're not going to knock anybody out like this, right?
You got to turn it, yeah.
Exactly. You got to have your body behind it, really. There's arm punching, and you can throw a hard punch with your arms, but you lose energy every time. But anyway, Mayweather had to make McGregor look as good as he could, and then knock him out at the very end, which is what ended up happening. And that's kind of, look, if I could get Hoist Gracie to just say do a 10-round kickboxing match, what kind of a fight do you think that's going to be?
It's going to go in your favor.
His first, right now, Conor's first pro fight, he went with Mayweather. Yes, he was 47 years old. And Mayweather said, "Listen, I'm not in my prime, but I'm plenty for you. I'm not in my prime striking, but if I said, because people say, oh, Hoist has been training with punches. I said, I make any promoter an offer. I will fight Hoist Gracie. So I will donate my entire salary to the charity of his choice.
Wow.
All
you were that
salary.
confident.
I will
Yeah,
fight Hoist Gracie
exactly.
10 rounds kickboxing match if Hoist wants to go with me. And I said that about Matt Hughes, by the way. When Matt Hughes was, he's got a lot of physical problems now. He got into a car crash, but when he was healthy, I told all the UFC promoter, Dana White, all of them. I went on a couple of sites, some of these UFC or these MMA sites, and I did interviews. I said, yes, I make the offer right now. If you think Matt Hughes is on the striking capability of mine, I'll fight him in a 10-round kickboxing match with my full fight purse to go to the charity of his choice. So if Matt believes he can beat me and he doesn't accept the fight, and a promoter doesn't promote the fight, then
this is fantastic.
Because they were talking like, after the fight didn't happen with me and Matt, because Dana did that, what I said. He did not send a contract with the amount of money we shook on.
Right.
It was a little more than half what we agreed on, basically, what it was.
That's not cool.
He's fighters taking the money, but I don't, luckily, knock on wood, I've had a pretty successful career as an actor, and I don't need the money. And I don't begrudge anybody else who fights for any amount of money or whatever. If you need money, or do you do a bad film or something, it's a horrible film, but you just need money. I mean, some people, I never did that. Take a starring role in the movie that I read the script and I knew it was going to be bad. I never did that. Now, not all my movies are as good as, some are better than others, but I always started with the idea that it was going to be a good script or movie, and I liked the script. I liked the director. I was involved in the casting. I mean, I always start off with a positive outlook on each movie I ever did. I never did one that I knew was bad just for the cash, and I never did that with a fight.
I want to talk about a bunch of movies in a moment. Real quick on the boxing. I'm glad you brought up a lot of boxing there, because I know you're a huge boxing fan as well. And that's what mixed martial arts is.
I did a little boxing.
And look at you. You boxed, you kickboxed, and you wrestled. I mean, martial arts, mixed martial arts. Again, you were practicing at a time where most people didn't know how to do all those things. And like you said, there's a lot of people that did it. But Don, come on. We talked about the best of the best before as a great film franchise. I mean, you're the best of the best, in my opinion, with your not only film career for a martial artist as a pioneer to great martial arts films, but also as a world champion. So let's move into your films. Blood Fist, we spoke about before. I mean, I mentioned 3 and 4 and 1 as my favorites. Part 1 was excellent. It was at a time where all of a sudden all these martial arts movies were coming out. But this one was a little bit, I'm going to say, darker. It had the ending fight scene was insane.
Well, look, now let's go back to those years. It was 1988 when I did Blood Fist. Now, of course, it came right after Blood Sport. So it had a similar kind of theme. And there was a brother that got killed, and there's a revenge motivation. And there were different styles of fighting all in one ring. And they fought to potential death. You don't have to. If you knock the guy out, you could win. So it wasn't, you had to kill every opponent. I mean, So the movie was very similar to Bloodsport, of course. And I got real fighters, top-notch fighters, which is something Bruce Lee started. Bruce Lee did it with Chuck Norris.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Enter the Dragon, he had Bob Wall, a top point fighter of the days, and Jim. Bruce Lee did putting real martial arts fighters in his movies. But I have always done it throughout my career. I've starred in 30 movies now, martial art movies, and I've appeared in probably another 30 or 40 movies of other people's, and just I'll do what they call cameos.
What made Blood Fist really interesting is that you think there was the one end, and then there's the big bad at the end where you're fighting outside. And if I'm not mistaken, it was raining.
Oh.
What do you got?
Yeah. There was an exterior. So it fights in a kind of like a hallway, kind of a dark hallway. It starts, and then look, the guy I was fighting is not a martial artist. He's an actor and an older actor. And that's why it's very dark, because he had to be stunt doubled, of course. In Bloodfest, the main fight was with an actor. And then, I don't want to say he's not a martial artist or not a fighter. So all his stuff had to be stunt doubled. And, in the bigger movies, they get stunt doubles that really look just like a guy. So it was kind of a difficult thing, because in the lesser budgeted movies, you got to like kind of make do with what stunt doubles you can get. And but that was it was a climactic fight in the sense of the story, but not with the actual fight action. If you watch the other fights, there were I had great martial artists. Billy Blank.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Yeah,
very high ranking. Yeah, very high ranking, experienced martial artists, and they would have given me a great fight in the final one if they were the. But in the story, they were lesser characters. So that's why I'm glad if you like the fight even a little bit in Bloodfist, because it was not a I would say the highlighted fight
right.
due to techniques and things. It was just a story. It was telling the story. At the end of the fight, I get revenge on the guy who killed my brother.
Exactly, so, and it worked. And it's if I'm not mistaken, it was raining, and it was like almost like what they tried to do with Lethal Weapon 4 with Jet Li, and Mel Gibson and Danny. It had the same kind of vibe. Yeah, because we know Danny Glover wasn't the big fighter. You know what I mean? Like, but he tried his best against Jet Li, who's just an outrageous martial artist.
But the rain probably helped cover the fact that I was actually stunt doubled and everything. It was dark, right? It was outside.
Right.
So it made there was a method to the madness of why it was dark, why it was outdoors and not brightly lit inside, like in the arena or something. Because I was going up against a kind of an older actor who was not a martial arts or didn't have a stunt double that looked exactly like him. I believe what they did was this. He had a little extra weight, so I think they put the body pads on the body thing to make the stunt guy look a little heavier.
Right.
Then they had to do the makeup and kind of age him a little bit. They had to put a little gray hair. Anyway, it was a process, and the lighting was so important. And like everything, if you have a bigger budget, you have more time, and we could have done. Today they would use CGI. If the guy doesn't look like the right guy at the right angle.
Your first movie, if I'm not mistaken, was Say Anything? John Cusack?
No. The first movie I did is in, I believe, 82, and it was a Chinese movie. And I was not making the move to become an actor. They just offered me a movie. And I said, tell me something about this. It was being filmed in New York City. So I'd never been in a movie. I played the bad guy, got killed in it. But it was 6 weeks of shooting in New York City. And that was the first movie. Now, when I moved out to LA, I had made, Chuck Norris had advised me to try, when I retired from kickboxing, move out to LA and get an agent, try to be an actor. So I did that on Chuck Norris's advice. He was starring in movies then. He's the only one that was famous as a fighter before he did movies. I mean, that's why Bruce Lee put him in his movies. His first movie for Chuck, it was because Chuck was a top fighter. Same reason I put guys in my movies. They were top fighters, so I wanted the real thing in my movies. And Bruce Lee wanted the real thing, so he got Chuck Norris. And when I met Chuck Norris at one of my fights, he suggested I do it. And so that's why in 1985, I retired 3 times so far. But I'd fight tonight if they have cash. But
I know you would.
I moved out to LA in 85. Oh, yeah. Once a fighter, always a fighter. But I moved out to LA in 85, got an agent, entered, I enrolled into several acting classes, and I started auditioning. And it was, I was like everybody else, people said, well, how did you do it? I said, well, I auditioned for Bloodfist. They liked me. Roger Corman hired me, and I ended up having a career. Bloodfist was a huge hit. It was a big success. And then I did Bloodfist 2 or 3, and eventually I said, look, I did 12 movies with Roger Corman. If you do 12 movies and you're not a movie star, then whatever it is that you are supposed to have, you obviously don't have it. And but I basically, he started me off, Roger Corman, very, very famous producer, and I ended up having a career that spanned, 30 years. I've been acting now, over 30 years.
Again, a wonderful career, man, and I'm so appreciative of what you've done for me as a martial artist, as a boxer, as someone that loves film. And I have a guilty pleasure about martial arts movies. Like when you go to the video store back in the day, it had like drama, comedy, martial arts. Bring me there. And like I said at the beginning of the show, Don the Dragon Wilson, I bring one tape back and, oh, there's another one. Let me get it. So, and back in even the day with the UFC, like I used to rent those. And when you talked about the 8-man tournament, it was crazy. Guys were wearing sweatpants and sneakers, and fighting, in these big tournaments. And it's the sport has evolved. Martial arts has evolved in such a way nowadays that I'm so proud of. Like it really started to come together.
They have all the weight divisions now.
Exactly. Yep.
The rules have gloves. Because they found out early on when you punch bare knuckle, you break your knuckles, and then that's the end of the punching.
Absolutely, I busted everyone.
The gloves are not designed to protect your brain.
No,
you can hit harder than you can without. The gloves are meant to protect your knuckles, so you can punch and kick the whole fight. They wanted to extend the fight, and then they have, and it's become a sport now. And of course, you got to have weight divisions. There's nothing fair about 60-pound guy fighting a 220-pound guy.
No.
That's setting you up eventually for a major,
failure.
Death in the ring.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 220.
So outside of the fight game, which we love so much, we talk about film a lot. Obviously, you being a very awesome martial arts actor, what other interests do you have? I mean, what are some of the movies and music you like, or TV shows that you enjoy for hobbies?
Well, people ask me, what is your hobbies, and what do you do for fun? And martial arts became a moneymaker for me. That's true. It did as a fighter, and it did as like Chuck Norris suggested, as an actor. But it's my passion. When I have free time, by the way, when this interview is over, I'm going to put my stuff on. I'm going to go to the gym, and I'm going to hit the heavy bag a little bit. And
get some.
My fun is the martial arts. That's my hobby. I was lucky enough in my life to have my hobby be my source of income. The thing, my passion, I guess the word is probably better, passion, because my heart's in it. Nobody has to say, hey, Don, you got to go to the gym today. And then I go, oh, no, I do. What? I look at my watch. No, that's not what I can't wait. And it's not always like that. I've been to many boxing gyms. In fact, where I'm training now is a boxing gym. And the pro boxers is like pulling teeth. Their trainers say, you got to work out. You got to hit at least 10 rounds on the heavy bag today. And you jump rope for 30 minutes. And they're just complaining. And it's miserable. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I would not been a kickboxer if I felt like those guys. I would have not have lasted a year at that. But I fought for 28 years. I fought from 74 to 2002. That's 28 years as a fighter. And now that I retired in 2002 was my last fight. But I'm talking about fighting right now. I was offered a fight, by the way, a year ago in Kazan. It's in Russia. And I said yes. And they gave me the opponent they wanted me to fight. And I probably shouldn't say his name. I've said in other interviews, so I probably should say it was Van Damme. And I said,
I heard this.
Fight Van Damme? I said, yes. Well, listen, here's what happened though. This is just a year ago. I said, you're going to have a hard time getting, because the promoter is the owner of he's a Russian billionaire, oligarch. He owns the stadium. He knows if he produces me fighting Van Damme in the stadium, he can put it on pay-per-view all over the world.
Huge.
And people will see it. Huge. Like remember when Marcos was the president of the Philippines? Nobody knew who he was. He promoted the Ali Frazier fight, and all of a sudden, with Ali's on one side of Marcos Frazier's side, he has their hands. He became one of the most famous world leaders instantaneously because of that fight. So this guy's thinking, if I got Van Damme and Don Wilson fighting in my stadium, I'll get in the ring, I'll present the trophies, and I'll right, big exposure.
Huge.
And he probably was right. He didn't care who was going to win. but he thought Van Dam was a real fighter. That's where it didn't work. Van Dam, to my knowledge, has never had a pro fight, let alone be a contender and be what they advertise in Bloodsport. They advertise undefeated middleweight champion. I will say this though: when you've never had a fight, you are undefeated. You know, you're undefeated. You've never had a fight. Like if you go online right now, when we get done with this, you go online to punch John Dragon Wilson Kickboxing. A bunch of my fights are hopefully you'll see the ones that I want. But you go Jean-Claude Van Damme, world title fight, you won't see any. There's no Jean-Claude Van Damme 10 rounds. You can't even get to a world title unless you're a contender. And you've got to fight years. You don't win it. You don't go from an amateur to a contender in like 6 weeks. It would be years. He would have a long, and I know his name's Van Barenberg is really, but the guy's a total fraud. So basically what ended up happening was the guy came back to me and said, "You're right, Mr. Wilson. Jean-Claude will not fight you." He thought it was going to be a real fight. And but listen, I was mentioning the thing with Mayweather. You know, Mayweather carried Conor McGregor until he decided to knock him out.
Yes, sir.
Round. And the only thing that made it tough on Mayweather is when he stunned Conor McGregor. If you're a fighter, look, I knocked out 48 pro fighters. The reason he couldn't knock out McGregor is McGregor was so stunned. He was bouncing he was fouling on the ring ropes. Mayweather didn't realize it was not going to be easy. It's easy to knock him out. If Conor had attacked him and he was right in front, Mayweather just caught him it was one of the near the end of the fight. He carried him all that way though. If you listen to the announcers, the first 5 rounds they're going, Mayweather has not thrown one punch because he knew if I throw anything that lands, it's my promotion. That'll be it. You know, that'll be it. Nobody will ever pay to see me fight. Because let me tell you something. I don't know if you know this. Right after that fight, Mayweather got a big offer from Japan. And to my knowledge, since it didn't go through an athletic commission in America, nobody can verify how much Mayweather got paid. But if he fought, he made $200 million. You think he's going to go over there for $150?
No.
He got an astronomical amount of money from the Japanese. And here's what he did. He went over there, and the Japanese had an up-and-coming kickboxer who was beating everybody.
Yep.
He was their little superstar in Japan. Mayweather knocked him out in the first round, laughing the whole time, smiling and laughing and just dropping him over and over and over until he was done. In one round.
Took him out fast.
He just decimated him.
Quick, easy money. I saw the fight. Quick, easy money.
High-level strike. Okay, you thought Conor McGregor was an amateur boxer in Ireland, but not an Olympic champion, not a Golden Glove champion. He was just a guy who went to the gyms and he had a couple of amateur boxing. That was it. You tell me he went 9 rounds with Mayweather boxing. Now listen, if Conor had grappled with him, he would have done what Randy Couture did to James Toney. You go at the knee level. Yes, when you're down at the knee, if you go and you get a scoop, you get behind the knee, you pull it in, you get the weight on one leg, no boxer is going to stand up. He's going to be right on the ground. And once you're on the ground, there's no boxing, right? That's what would have happened had there not been, you know, I'm not saying I believe there was some kind of an unspoken agreement at the very least with Conor and Mayweather, because I'm looking at Conor and he gets right next to Mayweather, and instead of even any kind of punch, he's doing this.
Yep.
He's literally on the back of the head, he's going like this, which, first of all, it's illegal to hit the back of the head. But, but this is not even a hit. If you pay me $200 million, I will give you a glove and you can hit me in the back of my head today, right now, like that. Are you going to stop Mike Tyson with that punch? I don't think so.
Speaking of Tyson.
So, oh, by the way, everybody's fighting now. Roy Jones, when he was a light heavyweight, he was a light heavyweight. It was when the very first K1 came to America. Me and Roy were the announcers. So during the fight, all we did was talk about fighting each other. Because my name at that time guaranteed pay-per-view. Not my name as a fighter, my name because of the movie. Mm-hmm. You know, I did come out of retirement in '99 because I got viewer's choice. Name one kickboxer who was main evented viewer's choice. Back in those days, they were doing Tyson's fights, Holyfield's fights, and when they heard that I would come out of retirement, They signed the contract and they put my fight on viewer's choice. Of course, that was one of the last fights on viewer's choice, but I didn't make the company go bankrupt. but I did. I fought on viewer's choice, and if I had fought Roy Jones at that time, boxer versus kickboxer, it wouldn't have been UFC rules. It would be some kind of mixed rules. One thing Roy said though, he said he would not allow me to kick his legs, which totally makes it unfair if I can't. If every time he tries to throw a jab, I just blast him in the leg, it's not going to be fair. But look, how much money would that have generated? This is probably in 1990. I don't know. It was when the first K1 came to America. It's like 92 or 3 or 4. It was when he was great as a boxer. And my movies were on cable constantly, HBO, Showtime, Cinemax. So it would have generated a lot of money. But what happened was after 2 weeks of negotiations, his team decided it was less risky and better for him if he gained weight and moved up to heavyweight. And if you remember, that's when he did it. He
John Ruiz.
Got up to 199, I believe.
He fought John Ruiz, yeah.
He won.
Yes.
But what happened? Roy realized he was not a heavyweight. He did win. So he dropped weight, went back down light heavy.
Antonio Tarver got him.
He lost his edge.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he got knocked out twice.
It's Glenn Johnson.
I believe the weight gain and the weight loss and age also affects you as you get older.
Yes, sir.
Those things took his edge off. You know, speed was probably his number one asset. And when you lose that, you know, he was getting hit. I remember one of the knockouts, you know, because he fought with his hands down all the time. He always did that because he liked it when you tried to punch him in the face because he was a counter puncher. He would come boom and come right over the top and hit you just because he was faster. But he leaned back, and it might have been Tarver was the first one to knock him out. But he didn't lean back enough. You know, his reflexes were not there, and he got hit, and it was a really bad knockout. Really bad knockout. I think he was out. It wasn't one of the ones where he gets up in 12 seconds or so.
The Tarver one.
He was down for minutes.
Was a nasty shot, and he was certainly down. The Glenn Johnson one, that's where he hit his head on the back of his head on the canvas, and that's where it's usually really, really bad because he was pretty much out as he went down, and his back of the head smacked the canvas after getting lit up. So it's never a good look.
Well, look, he didn't retire right then though. He promoted his own fight with a guy who was like a junior welterweight champion formerly, Trinidad. If you remember that, he promoted it himself because he wanted to go out a winner, and so he did your Trinidad. But I think he no fighter can say they're totally done until people quit offering you money, because when they waive that money, even that you're not starving, it feels like easy money because. When you think about your youth, when you were young and you were knocking guys out and winning, and you can't be a pro fighter at the high level unless you're a positive thinker. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we all think we're going to win. You know, it's like a curse. It's like a power of positive thinking, but it doesn't work when guys are punching or throwing bombs at your chin. You get hit, you go out like everybody else. And even though we feel good, your body is not the same. You know, I'm 66. And I'm telling you, I'm thinking about fighting last year. Of course, I'm not fighting Mike Tyson like Roy is. It's Van Damme. And you know what? I will fight Van Damme.
I want it. I want that fight. I want that fight because you know what? You were talking about passions before. And, you know, you are certainly passionate. I ask you what your hobbies are. It's fighting. It's having challenges. You know, obviously, you're like one of the nicest guys in the world. But when it comes to competition time, Don the Dragon Wilson doesn't play around. Let me ask you a question. Final thoughts on Tyson versus Jones. 2 weeks away, I believe. Who's going to win this thing?
No. They've rescheduled it. I think they've rescheduled. It's going to be later. Yeah, because of the pandemic.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's like
they want a live audience. They want a live audience. It's been pushed.
That's intelligent for money. Yeah, that's intelligent for money.
Yeah. Because the live audience is a consideration. Live audience is a consideration. My hope is that it's successful.
Yes,
First
I
of all,
think it
'cause
will be.
I like these older fighters having comebacks, and I don't want Roy to get hurt.
It's
You know
Mike
what I mean?
Tyson.
Like,
It's Mike Tyson, and Roy's chin hasn't looked so
Tyson's
great.
not gonna get hurt.
No, it's Mike Tyson. He's a dangerous. The power, Don, you know, it never goes away. You'll always have that power.
I've watched Tyson punch, and okay, he may not be able to go 10 hard rounds. I don't know how. They're not saying it's a 10-round fight, though. I think I heard it at some point. It was going to be.
I heard it's 8. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would say this: he can throw bombs for probably 6 rounds. You know what I mean?
Yes, he can.
So if he picks the first in round 1, and Tyson's not the kind of guy who does this. Oh, I'll go easy for a few. When the bell rings, look, I don't know how many. We probably could find out how many first-round knockouts does he have. He doesn't care about the show and the promoter and nothing. If he looks at the guy, if he can hit your chin in the first 10 seconds, he will. Bell rings, he's going to walk right across the ring, crowd Roy, because he's not going to be able to sit far away from him outside and out jab Roy Jones. It's not going to happen, and Tyson's not going to try it.
You know,
he's going to. Now Roy's going to have to grab, hold, run, move. I mean, he's got to avoid Tyson those first few rounds because, man, he's just a dangerous fighter.
He's dangerous. Right? He's so dangerous, dude. And we saw Holyfield, you know, recently training. Looks great. He's like be 60 years old. He's chiseled. He looks awesome. You know, and I remember like he's one of my favorite fighters of all time.
Some of that is right here. You know, they're you can get some HGH and human growth hormones, and you know you can put a lot of muscle on and everything, but there's still some things that are just come with age, like calcium. You know, I fought my last 20 rounds as a kickboxer with broken ribs. Both times my ribs were broken in the gym.
Wow.
Because when I was 48 years old. When you're 48 years old, you have less calcium. Now I'm 66. So how much calcium, how many blasts and body shots can I take now at 66?
Got to be careful. Got to be careful.
You know, I know this. Nobody's going to touch my body if I ever have another fight. Suppose, because I don't know how to train a 66-year-old man. Because, you know, I self-train myself. I have trainers, but they just do what I tell them. And my last two fights, I was 48 years old. And I didn't know that all the calcium is out of my bones. And I was sparring guys. One of them was the former light heavyweight boxing champion of the world. Lupe Aquino is his name, known for body punching. He went to throw a body punch. I turned to the side. He hit me in the back and broke my rib. This was a week and a half before the fight. Then I fought at the MGM Grand on ESPN 10 rounds against a 25-year-old heavyweight. And that was one of my comeback fights. You know, I had 3. And so listen, one thing for sure, whoever I fight, he's not going to fight an old guy with broken ribs, because I am not going to let anybody touch my ribs. I never want to do that again. It is the toughest thing in the world to go into a fight in the first round and you have a broke rib. It's tough.
I couldn't imagine that. I mean, how did you even get licensed for that sort of thing? And you just went through the process.
No, you don't tell them you get a broke rib.
Yeah.
You don't tell them you broke a rib.
That's a mark of a true fighter right there. That's a mark of a true fighter, brother.
Well, it's not the mark of a true smart fighter. But in my career, in 28 years, I never signed a contract for a fight and pulled out for any reason.
That's class. That's class,
didn't want to change it at the end of my career. Once I signed the contract, I fought. Now, I fought with the flu. Like I said, 2 broken ribs. I had a dislocated thumb, and my hand was broken. The thumb was broken in 3 places and dislocated, and I still fought. So I fought injured. You know, many times.
Yeah. You know what the thing is, when we start playing sports, athletics in general, like from the day you start any sport, for the most part, your body gets hindered and hindered and hindered more and more and more so. You know, how do you keep up you have great energy, you know, At 66, you were mentioning,
Well,
you're in great shape. How do you keep yourself together after all this?
well, if you had met me in the 90s when I was doing all the movies, I was in pain every day. Shoulder, hip, knee. Now, I was told I needed an operation on my shoulder, very common injuries, sugar letters, a lot of guys that can't do this. And I used to raise my arm up like this, and it would make popping sounds. And I also had a bad knee. I jumped out of a tree on a stunt, landed on the ground, and my knee went like this, like that. And then my hip, they told me I needed a hip replacement. Very common. Chuck Norris has had his replaced. The champion before me, Bill Wallace, hip replacement. It's a very common injury. So I was in bad shape in my 40s. But when I came out of retirement, I got on vitamin, mineral, protein supplements. And that was in 98. And I've been on them ever since. Every injury is completely healed. And I feel better at 66 than I did at 45.
Excellent.
Much better.
Excellent.
No injury. That's one of the reasons why I feel like fighting again, because, first of all, my left eye had a bad stigmatism. I wore glasses my whole life. It's totally corrected itself. I had no operations whatsoever, just my diet, and I wear no glasses anymore. Right. So I fought my whole career with one eye. That's why I fought southpaw, because I could defend myself like this. Right. I'm right-handed, but I fight southpaw right side forward because this is my good eye. Now, this is my good eye.
That's incredible.
So for the first time in my life, I can actually see my opponents. And yeah, it's tempting because I go to the gym and I shoot basketball. I shoot baskets, and it's very different to be able to see the basket. I play
it
basketball.
Helps to see the basket.
Orange thing.
It helps to see the basket. So here's what's up. Everything you were talking about is very inspiring and motivating, and with a lot of heart. And I gotta go and send a shout out to our friend Kimberly Couples, for hooking us up with this interview, because she's a great friend of mine, and I met her through Eric Roberts' connection with Eliza Roberts, and she's just a great woman. And it's funny because she hit me up and she's like, I really love Don the Dragon Wilson. I know you're into martial arts movies. I'm like, it's so crazy because I was just about to contact you about setting something up, and she's like, check him out here on Facebook. I'm like, that's meant to be, dude. So, I can't appreciate you enough for your time today, Don. I mean,
wow, I'm glad it worked out.
Absolutely. You watch Cobra Kai at all? Do you like Cobra Kai show?
You know what? I watched the very first episode. I liked it, but I watch no TV. I watch no. I haven't seen an episode since then, but I need to watch it though, because I'm, like I said, I'm getting offered TV series, and it's the natural progression for a guy like me, a guy who did the independent low budget movies, a TV series. That's what Chuck Norris did, as a matter of fact, right? 8 years on Walker. He went from Canon Films, low budget movies, to TV. So I'm probably going to make the movie TV. So I better watch the Cobra Kai though. I better watch it.
I think you should. I think you'd love it. I believe Simon Rhee has a lot to do with the choreography as well, with the upcoming season.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. So I'm thinking this. Now, I'm just throwing this out there in the universe, and it's just popped up. I swear this wasn't premeditated. A best of the best, TV series. We get Roberts, you.
Oh.
We have this whole thing, and we bring up a lot of other different people. And the only thing I ask is for 5 seconds, like, you guys beat me up at a diner or a nightclub. I have a cameo. You take me out, and then that's it. I'd be more than happy.
That sounds good for me. I'm all up for it. Sounds good.
Hey, Don, I cannot appreciate
they're
you.
They're doing a lot of retro kind of films. Series that were popular are coming back now. I believe my wife is a makeup artist. She's working on the Saved by the Bell. Now that's an old series.
Mario Lopez, yeah.
Brought back. And there have been several of those, older series that they do. Not a remake, it's a reboot, I believe they call it. Right. Where they redo it, and they get maybe one or two of the original cast members, and then they kind of, update it. And so it's not beyond the realm of possibility, John. You might.
That's what I'm saying. I think we're on to something here. Exactly. I put it in Eric Roberts' head. Eventually, I'm hoping to get to Philip and Simon on, and then eventually I'll be like, hey, same thing here. Like, hey, what do you think about and even if I'm in it or not in it, that's fine. I just would love to see it because I love that old school type martial arts action drama. Like, I mean, you would love Cobra Kai because it's so juicy. It's got a storyline to it.
I saw the first episode, and I liked it.
And the fight choreography
the first episode.
Is tremendous. So, and I appreciate you again for coming on. I cannot appreciate you enough. I mean, this is excellent. Don the Dragon Wilson, the legend, Don the Dragon Wilson.
Well,
Thank you so much.
It's always good for an actor to get out there and get his name out there and stay in front of the public. So it's good for me. And I like talking about the fighting. That's one of the rare things. Nobody really remembers that I was a fighter now. Really, that's kind of like ancient history. It's all about what movie do you have coming out? What was the fun movie you liked? It's all about the movie industry now. And I kind of miss talking about the fighting, but with you, I got both. So I appreciate that, John.
Anytime you want to talk fighting, brother, I'm a diehard boxing fan, mixed martial arts fan, obviously old school martial arts movies fan. I say old school meaning like the 70s, 80s, and 90s. That was my favorite era for that sort of thing. Maybe early 2000s had a couple, but Don, I mean, absolutely. And when I wanted to bring you on, I wanted to talk about the kickboxing because, again, that record, 72, 5, 2 draws, 48 KOs. What a fighting career, brother. So mad respect to you.
Yeah.
As soon as the show is up, I'll send you links. Okay, brother? Thank you, man. Thank you, Don. This was great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll put it on my Facebook page. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate you so much, man. Yep. Later.